Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And we are continuing our series of our top 100 games of all time.
That's right. We are on our 8th episode, which means we're talking about numbers 30 through 21. So be sure to check out the previous ones. Let us know what you think about those. And then also, as always, let us know what your games that you like, which you think would be in the top 100, and out of the ones that we're talking about, which ones do you approve of? Which ones would you put on your own personal list? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear about that.
All right, now let's get this party started. As always, ladies first. All right, so my number 30 is Paladins of the West Kingdom, and this is a game that has like this kind of tech tree in it. So you need all these things to do these things, all these different colored things to do different colored things, but you need them to do the other things. It's very stressful. You can't go on one track because you're prevented, because you have to be higher on other tracks to go high on this track. So you have to do everything. You can't ignore anything, but you really need to focus in on one thing at the same time. Yes.
It's the good stress.
Yes. Yes.
My number 30 is Russian Railroads. There are expansions to this as well, but the main, at its core, you basically have these different tracks that you're going along and the tracks that you're building up. At the beginning, they're all kind of at the beginning of all of the tracks, and you don't have enough power to power them all. So slowly what you're doing is you're kind of building up the different abilities that you have. It's a worker placement mechanism as well as you're different kind of building out what cards you have and how much strength everything has. And you're moving along the moving the train along as well. And then also you have all these different multipliers of scores. Points come from which direction. Sometimes points are in the 400s. You know, it's wild. It's like, okay, you have 403 to 389. It's like, that's an insane score for any game. But it all kind of keeps track of itself as you're going along it. It's a very, I don't know, heavy is the right word. It's pretty heavy, but it's not like it's super heavy. It's just a lot of fun. This is it's just a train game, but it doesn't feel like a train game because it doesn't have that point-to-point connection that a lot of train games have, but it's all kind of train-themed. And I really like it a lot. It bounces well at all player counts, and it is great.
It is great. Okay, my number 29 is Athene Infection at Outpost 31. This is a game that I had a lot of fun playing. There's a hidden traitor. There's the things on the board, and you're trying to all escape, but you might not be able to escape. And, you know, it's one of those social deduction hidden traitor games. But the thing I really liked about this is I enjoyed the gameplay so much that it actually encouraged me to find the short story so I could read it. So I really like that. That's only happened twice of the, all the games that I played where this game made me want to go to the literature about it. So that was really fun. And it was because I had such a great time all the times that I played this game that I was encouraged to find the source material. But yes.
But not the movie. Just the short story.
Correct. I have not watched.
What most people would think of.
I have not watched either of the movies, but I have read the short story. And then I read the volume that I found through my library. It had like a little synopsis of all the movies as well and like production stuff about them. So I got some backgrounds of the movies. It's just I haven't watched either of them. Which one should I watch? There's two of them. Which one do you think is better that most aligns with the short story? Let me know in the comments below.
My number 29, this is Terraforming Mars. What a great game. There is so many cards. I mean, a stack of cards this big you have to shuffle before you get going. But because they all do so many different things, each card is individual. There's no duplicates in the whole thing. You have a ton of different resources that you're gathering, anything from the currency that you use to natural resources that you're kind of mining on Mars, but then you also have kind of other resources as well, like, pets. Pets is one of the resources that you can gather. It's worth points at the end of the game, and things like that. There's just your different companies that are all terraforming on the planet of Mars. And so it's not like you have your, competing or whatever in that way. It's just who can do it the best, who can get the most points out of it. There is a way that you can play aggressively against one another, or you can choose to take those cards out and play it more peacefully against one another. It's a little bit more multiplayer solitaire, but the cards are still very, very, very interesting. I like it both ways, depending on who I'm playing with. And I play this on BGA, on Board Game Arena, quite a bit. And every time it comes up, I'm always excited. I'm never not excited to have my turn come up. It's one of those games where I'm never bored. There's always something cool to do, always more cards to mess with. You never have enough resources to do anything until the end of the game. Then you have too many resources and you can't spend them all because you don't have enough cards. I love this game. It is so well done. Every expansion I've played has been interesting as well. I don't like some of the kind of the smaller ones. I didn't like Ares Expedition as much. I didn't like the dice game as much. They're all fine. They're just not top 100 worthy.
All right. My number 28 is Trajan, and this is a game, if you want to know, like, Bethany trivia, this is some Bethany trivia. Trajan was my first favorite game when we first started getting into the hobby. Well,
Your
when
original number one?
Yes, so this was my original favorite game when I first started becoming a hobby gamer. Trajan is a game where there's a bunch of mini games that are happening on the board, but how you do that is there's this mancala, and you're moving things around in order to determine where your action is. You're trying to get things to line up so you can get like super actions on those things as well. The thing that cracks me up about this game, I don't know why it is, but I always peter out that last quarter. Like the first 3/4 of the game, I have strategy. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm doing really, really well. And then like the last quarter, I'm like,
run out of gas.
I don't know what's happening anymore. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what's going on. And there was a streak where whenever I played this game, we could play it 2-player or we could play it 4-player or 3-player. Regardless of the count, I always got second place. For like years that was happening. It was the wildest thing.
My number 28, this is Dead Reckoning. Dead Reckoning uses the card crafting system from Mystic Vale. And it's by the same designer and the same publisher. But what's happening is instead of just having it simply be a card crafting, almost like a deck building style game where you're kind of just moving the cards around, that is the whole game. And this, you have an entire whole board that is the ocean. It's the whole ocean. And you are sending your boats out, discovering, all these different islands and towns and fortresses and other ships and all these things that are going on. You kind of want to colonize those different little islands, and then you want to fortify them and protect them because they're going to give you income and resources. And you kind of always have to pick up those resources and then bring them back to your home base as well. You have a limited number of storage on your boat, so it's like you can't just take it all because your boat would sink. So you have to kind of go back and forth, but you only have one boat, which means you're leaving all your settlements unattended and undefended as well. So people might swoop in and take over your stuff as well while you're out, gallivanting around, exploring, or taking things back to your home base. It's all based off of that card crafting system. It's got a really, really interesting way of doing combat through this kind of this cube tower, dice towery thing, and where the dice land on this flat surface. There's different little areas on the board where the things kind of land out. That determines all the results. You might get some resources. You might take damage. You might, just flat out win as well. But then there's also, if you did like the Kickstarter thing and all the things that go along with that, there's a bunch of different mini modules that you can add in, one of which is a full Legacy-style campaign where you are adding all these different little cards in. They're going to give you little bits of plot and different things that you can add in, and it's going to carry over from round to round to round. So if you can get a group of players to play this repeatedly over and over again, you're going to have months and months of dedicated gaming content and never get bored. This is a really interesting system and a really cool game.
My number 27 is the Resistance Avalon. This is another social deduction game. For me, it might be the quintessential social deduction game. I should probably make sure I don't have anything further up to make that a true statement. I'm pretty sure that's true. And this is one that it's almost like required for Ryan and I to bring to family gatherings. People always want to play it. Side note, when I play with my siblings, my mom can't be in the room because she can't handle how mean we are to each other when we're playing this game. It just makes her so sad to hear all of her kids fighting and like being really accusatory. But that's what happens in this game. You are trying to go on these missions and try to get them to succeed if you're on King Arthur's court, and if you're not, you're trying to get these missions to fail. But nobody knows who's the good guy or bad guy. So there is a lot of arguing and a lot of hurt feelings that luckily with my siblings we can get over like really quickly, but we might be silent with each other for a couple of minutes after a game of this. I don't know why they keep asking for it for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. We've been like, we have to bring this at all family gatherings. They're almost like disappointed if we don't bring this game.
We just sometimes need a break too.
Yes, yeah.
All right, my number 27, this is Jerusalem Anno Domini. It is a game where you are trying to get into the Last Supper to hear Jesus and his disciples speak, but you have to get an invitation, right? You don't just get to show up. And so you have to do this resource management thing going on in order to get the best seats in the house. because at the time, let's say there was no microphones and
Yes.
speakers and sound systems. So you just have to get closer in order to hear everything better. So you have this system where you want to get as close as possible, get the maximum amount of points. Everything in this game is some light deck building elements to it too. There's some set collection. It's just kind of a lot of mini games that kind of all come together. They're all tied together in a way that comes into one solid package. It's fairly crunchy, but at the same time, every time I teach it, the teach goes really smooth because it's all intertwined in a really great way. Everything kind of makes sense together.
Yeah. My number 26 is The Spill, and this is a game where there is an oil spill and you are working together to try to clean it up. You are trying to clean up the spill, you are trying to barricade the spill, and you're also trying to help animals that have been affected by the spill. It all uses this really cool like cube tower that you put through, and where those cubes happen on the board is where the oil spill is going out as you're traveling around with different abilities to try and clean this up and to barricade it. It's a really good game. I like, you get a little bit of that stress while you're playing it, like of even just a loose conceptual idea of what it would be like to deal with something like this. But it's just a really solid game. It makes me sad that nobody really talks about it. Like, I never hear anybody talk about this game, but it's solid. If you like cooperative games, I would highly recommend checking this one out.
All right, my number 26, this is Underwater Cities. This has been like 5 heavy ones in a row for me. This is another worker placement style game where you are trying to build all these different underwater cities, as the name so clearly suggests. But you have these kind of bubbles that are these cities. You have to connect them with all these different little waterways and paths. The resources are tight. There's you need resources to do everything. So you have to spend several of your turns just kind of gather resources, and then you spend them. But then you get income based off of what you've built at the end of each round. But you only have 3 rounds. So you only get income 3 times that matter. And it's, oh my goodness, it's so much to do in so little time. But you have in your favor a lot of cards, and the cards are going to be able to do things for you as kind of a reaction. Maybe every time you do this action, take an extra goodie. Every time you do one of these actions, you get to take an extra action, or whatever the case is. You're kind of constantly building up this engine along with the worker placement stuff. So you have this cascading effect of where every turn at the end of the game is super cool. And then you have kind of stagnant cards that are always giving you abilities. The point scoring cards are very, very expensive, but gosh darn it, if you don't get any of them, you're not going to do all that well in the scoring either. So you need it all, but you can't get it all. And I love that tension.
Yeah. My number 25 is Ghost of Christmas, and this is a trick-taking game. It does 2 things that I think are really interesting. You have to bid basically on how many tricks you think you're going to take. You can either risk it and be an exact, and you get buco points for that, or you can kind of say like a range, and you get like some points for that. But what's really cool about this is the tricks, like you play them, but then they might be resolved differently. So this, like, what is important might change after you've played your cards. It's just really wild how it works out.
The past, the present, and the future.
Yes,
just like
when
when
you're placing the cards and then it's resolved, and so things might switch around, and you might be like, I really need to not win this trick, and because of things that happened earlier, you're like, crap, I just won this trick. It's really, really fun. I definitely would not teach this game to somebody who is not familiar with trick taking. I just think it's a bit too much. But if you have people that really like trick taking and you want to introduce them to something like Trick Taking Plus, this is the one.
My number 25, lightening things up a little bit, Iron Forest. If you're familiar with Ice Cool, it's a flicking dexterity game that's very family friendly. This is that same exact system, but ramped up quite a bit. For one thing, you had just one level, right? You were flicking around these little penguins. This has 2 tiers. 2 tiers of boards where you're flicking everything around. If you want to get higher up, to the higher level, there's actually a catapult that you flick up there. This has 2 teams to it.
And then there's holes in the top.
Holes that you can drop down below.
Yeah.
So you're constantly going up and down, trying to fulfill these different objectives. There's multiple scenarios. I think there's like 9 or 10 scenarios in this game. Each one of them has you doing a different way that you can win the game. You always have 2 teams against each other. So you can do 2-on-2 or 1-on-1, or you can do 2-on-1 because double up on that stuff. It doesn't matter. The point is you have 2 teams working against each other. They have very different asymmetric goals, and each time you play, different asymmetric goals of what they're trying to accomplish, but they're also balanced as well. And it is incredibly impressive table presence. Every time you just kind of look and see that, you're just like, I want to play that. It looks super fun. The toy factor is through the charts as you're kind of flicking all this stuff and catapulting all this stuff. But at the same time, it's no longer like this family-ish, childish thing. It's much more strategic as you're trying to accomplish these goals. This is a very, very beautiful production, and I love showing it to everyone and just seeing the table presence and the look on their face. They're like, that's so weird and cool. I love it.
Yeah. My number 24 is Love Letter. There are so many different variations of this game. I don't even know. How many are there? Do you know off the top of your head?
A dozen
Yeah,
or more.
so many different iterations of this game. But essentially, it's so streamlined. You draw a card and you play a card. So you have 2 cards to choose from. You either want to be the last man standing or you want to have the highest card value at the end of the round. And then after so many rounds happen and somebody gets X amount of points depending on how many people are playing, then you win. This is so streamlined. It's so easy. This is definitely one of those games where we, because it's just numbers, as long as a kid can memorize the number, even though there's text to it, if they can memorize what a certain number does, this is actually a game you can play kind of text independent once you can explain those. It's definitely a game that was a bridge for our girls when we were playing kids games and then moving on to not kids games. This was like one of those bridge games for us. So it's a game that they still consistently ask for as well. It's just a classic love letter.
My number 24, this is Amerigo. It's a Stefan Feld game that involves a cube tower at its heart. This cube tower, you have all these different cubes that all represent different actions. What you're going to do is you're going to, every round, drop in a different color of cube. But what shoots out might not always be the same color because of all the different things inside the cube tower holding things back from coming out of the cube tower. What actions you can choose from are what colors come out. So you don't drop down one cube color. If 2 or 3 different cube colors come out, those are now the 3 different options you have that turn. And whichever color of those that did drop out, you have the strongest of. Let's say you had 4 reds, 1 blue, and 1 green. I don't know. The 4 is the biggest number. So whichever action you take, you can do at a strength of 4. So that kind of is how you determine this game. You are exploring, you are trying to get these plantations going, you're trying to gather all these different resources. There's a multiplier as far as if you have enough of the, let's say, the fields and the production capability, multiply those together, and that's going to be your score for each one of the crops that you're trying to plant. You're trying to build all these buildings are worth points. Of course, there's pirates coming after you as well, so you got to fight off the pirates. It's kind of the feed your people mechanism. A lot of Feld games have that feed your people mechanism, and fighting off the pirates happens to be how this one works out. It is a really cool game. Each time you play it is different because of the way the cubes drop out. You can't possibly figure out what you're going to do until the cubes have figured out how you resolve the cube tower. It is, again, a great table presence as well as just a really fun, solid game. Stefan Feld, my homeboy. There's going to be ones higher up, even in this list. So stay tuned for more Feld.
All right, my number 23 is Viscounts of the West Kingdom, and this is a light deck building game. So you have this Viscount, you're literally moving around the board, and wherever you land is an action that you get to take, but you also have these cards, and you're shuffling through. So you always have these 3 cards in front of you, but where they are or when you place them is going to determine the actions that you can take with that, and you're also drafting cards in order to place in your tableau. So it's really interesting, like you're deck building, but it's also tableau, and you're also moving your guy around, and then there's this tower in the middle where you're doing stuff everywhere on this board. But this is, I think it's I'm trying to like check to make sure I'm not lying, but I think it's my favorite of the games. I think so.
Garfield.
Yes, I think this is my favorite.
Lines.
Yes, and I really like this game. It's probably my favorite because the first time we played, or the second or third time we played, I totally schooled Ryan, and it was amazing.
I have no memory of this. I don't know what you're talking about.
It was like one of the best gaming experiences I ever had. It was delightful. That's always going to be with me, and I will always have that. So thank you, Viscounts of the West Kingdom.
All right, as promised, number 23, La Isla by Stefan Feld. This is a much lighter Feld. It's a very cute game. The theming of it is there's all these animals that were thought to be extinct, but yet here on this one little hidden island, they're all thriving. So it's your job to kind of investigate and see what's going on. You have this kind of surround mechanism going on, and based off of all these different colors and symbols, you are surrounding them and trying to get these different multipliers of all these different animal types. The card play is very interesting. Every turn, you're going to get a handful of cards. One of them will give you a resource, one will give you kind of a scoring mechanism, and one's going to give you a special ability that will be active until you cover it up. And so you kind of constantly working the cards in your favor in order to make that all happen. It's one of the lighter Felds, and I think it was even one of the ones that was re-implemented by his City collection, but I have not yet played that new kind of changed version. I think, is it Cusco?
Maybe, I don't remember.
If you know, by the way, let me know. Is it Cusco that I need to check out? If it's the La Isla tie-in? I want in, because I love La Isla. This is a game that Feld purists don't dig as much as it's the lighter one, so therefore it's frivolous and silly and not crunchy and heavy like you want. But it is still really fun. I taught this to our daughters recently and had a great time.
Yeah. My number 2 is Pandemic. This is just such a classic cooperative game. You are going around the board trying to prevent these diseases, trying to prevent infections, and you're trying to create cures for them as well, and you're all working together while this is happening. It's one of those games that has that type of stress that I enjoy when I'm playing a cooperative game. I always feel like I can win, but always feel like I'm losing at the same time. And I like that in a game where I feel like there's an avenue and I have an opportunity. It's possible, but I don't know if it's going to happen type of feeling. And I feel like I get that every single time I play this. And it's so customizable in how much difficulty you want this game to be. There's a ton of expansions you can add to it, so you can do different things with it as well. There's so many re-implementations of this game. But Pandemic, classic, is a classic.
All right, my number 22, Sorcerer City. This is a tile-laying game, but it kind of works in a way like a deck-building game. So every round you're going to buy more tiles, gather all of your tiles, shuffle them all together, and play them out again. There's a real-time element to it, so where you are kind of speeding things up. The first round you only have a few tiles, your starter ones. You have no problems putting them out there. But as you gain more and more tiles, it's going to get harder and harder by the time the timer runs out. You also have all these monsters that are coming out as well. So these monsters are adding to the complexity and the complications. They're all going to do negative effects to you. But you have all these different resources that you're gathering, and there's different ways you can gather these resources by laying out your tiles in a certain manner. It's just such a unique, cool game. This tile laying, deck building, real-time resource management. There's just so much going on here. But at the same time, it's very simple too. I love this game, and it is we have the deluxe edition, and it's really, really pretty to play with. It looks awesome, but you need a lot of table presence because as you try to build things out, especially towards the end of the game, if you're playing with the full 6 players, your whole table is just filled with tiles everywhere.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
My number 21 and the last one for this section is Wavelength. And oh my gosh, I know I talked about Avalon earlier, but I feel like there is more arguing in Wavelength. What it is you have a thing. Let's just say one of ones, it's just really funny, is most attractive Pokemon to least attractive Pokemon. Like, that's one of the options, and you have this dial, and you twist it, and the person who's giving the clue, the dial lands somewhere, and what you're trying to do is get your team to guess where you landed by giving a clue. And there's a lot of different spectrums, like,
hot to cold, pokey versus round.
Yeah,
Then there's, like, more, like, nuanced ones, too, like
legal versus illegal, like all these things.
Immoral versus illegal.
Yes, something like that. All sorts of weird criteria. And I don't think there's been a single time we've played this game where some type of inside joke has not come forth from it. I mean, there's certain people that when you've played with and something happens and then you just randomly are talking. I remember one time we played this game and for about a half hour, 45 minutes later, it was late, mind you. It was like past midnight. We had this huge discussion about Neville Longbottom. For like we were texting in this group chat about it, and people that were in the chat hadn't all played the game, and they were really mad at us. They're like, "Stop talking! I'm trying to go to sleep right now." But there's never a time where I've played this game, and there hasn't been some event that's come out of it that gets brought up years and years and years to come. This is one of those games that has those moments that all gamers want.
All right, so my last one for this particular segment, this is my number 21, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. This is the base game, which is called The Thames Murders and Other Cases. This is such a cool campaign-style game. In this box, there are 10 cases, 10 crimes that have happened. We are playing as Watson and the, what are the boys called? The something, I can't think right now.
Watson and the somethings.
No, come on, we know it. If you can remember what the street kids in Sherlock Holmes lore is, put it in the comments below. Remind me of what that is. But anyways, we are
totally derailed.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna be thinking about for the next until I finish this video and Google it, because I'm gonna be so mad at myself for not knowing. But we're playing as those guys, not Sherlock Holmes specifically. And what we're doing is we are given a case and we are given a little bit of information about it. But then it's our job to go around town interviewing as many people as we want to in order to figure out more about this case. But you want to solve it as quickly as possible by going to as few spots as possible. Because the point of the game is you are kind of being tested against Sherlock Holmes himself. And of course, after our first play, we realized really quickly, we're never going to beat Sherlock Holmes. So guess what we're going to do? We're just going to explore the town, talk to everybody.
Yes.
We're going to go from door to door, knocking on doors, asking about this crime. And another thing, the game kind of allows for that and facilitates that because they know that if you accidentally get off on a tangent, it's bound to happen. What they do is there's a set of questions at the beginning or at the end of the game, and you have to answer them based off of whether or not you solved the crime. But there's a secondary set of questions that there's usually some other hidden crime that nobody knows about, and you uncover it as you kind of might get derailed a little bit. And so once we've realized that we are not going to win very often, we're not going for a high score anymore. We are simply going for having the most amount of fun, talking through these cases in a funny British accent and solving all these different side missions as well as we learn out every single possible detail about this case. We played this with a couple friend of ours throughout COVID-ish times via Zoom, and it was so much fun. I highly recommend this.
It worked perfect in that medium, too.
Yeah, because we had a box, they had a box, and we just kind of alternated who was reading what. And
what was funny is we also had 2 different editions, so there were some things that were
there's typos that were fixed in some of ours, some of the things that weren't. Some things were added or taken away. It's that must be a relevant clue because throughout the editions they decided to change it. So there must be a reason. That was funny to see. Great game. This actually has some expansions too that have more cases, and I would love to get my hands on this. Some of those expansions and play through those as well because this was just an epic experience that I will never forget. I love this game.
Woo! We did it! That was this section. We are really, really close to the end here. We want to know, have you played any of these games? How well would you have rated the games on our list? Let us know games that would probably be in your top half of your top games. Let us know in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out.
Everybody, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
You guys, thanks for watching our shenanigans. As always, we appreciate it. Over here, if you follow this link, you're going to find a playlist we've hand-selected, handcrafted just for you because you watched this video.
And if you check over here, this is a video that YouTube thinks you might like. So you can check that out if you want as well.
All right, we appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye.